Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be doing the saddest little wrap up ever. I have 5 books to talk about, which is real bad. I haven't even actually put the stats into my spreadsheet yet, so we're doing real bad. I mean, just looking at them, it's not that many pages if I'm being 100% honest. They were all audiobooks though. I mean, it was a mix of some of them. Let me see, 4-star, 3-star, 4-star, a 4-star, a 2-star. Oh, I don't want to do math. That's an average of 3.5. Let me think. I read 5 fantasies, 2 middle grades, 1 young adult, 2 adult, which is very strange for me. Then, yeah, they were all either audio or a mix of both. So let's just get into it. I didn't start reading anything until the 8th of the month. And the first book that I read was The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. Basically, I started being like, wow, I have way too many series on the go. Let me just finish them. So I read The Subtle Knife. I just put the audiobook on and listened to it all in one day. And pretty similar thoughts as what I had with the first book. So this is the Northern Lights trilogy. I don't know what the series is called. It follows Lyra. She is a young girl and she grows up in Oxford, and there is this substance called dust that they are studying, and she ends up getting taken away by this woman to get taught, and then she ends up setting off on a journey because somebody is taking children and she wants to find out what is happening. And I was really impressed by this, the first book. Like, I was so surprised. Like, it was kind of dark and it is like a children's book. I guess the 90s were just a different time. And the same kind of kept going with The Subtle Knife. The Subtle Knife, we actually get introduced to like a second main character, and this is a like boy, teenager, whatever. And I really enjoyed his character as well. I think the two of them bounced off each other really well. Like, they like really had each other's backs, and kind of like the way they were like very much bickering a little at the start, and then like very quickly just like trusted each other completely and were like, okay, I guess we're in this together. I still continue to really enjoy the writing style and the plot, and like, as I said, I was really quite invested in it for a kid's book. And yeah, I think this is like probably one of like the most pleasant surprises I've had of the year is this series. So yeah, so I gave that a 4-star. I very much enjoyed it, and I definitely liked the introduction of a new character. And then leading on from that, I read The Amber Spyglass, which is the 3rd and final book in the original trilogy. I don't think I'm going to read the spin-off series. I have not heard the best things about it, and based on how this one finished, I thought it was a really good ending, and I kind of don't want to continue on. I think, again, like, I feel like it was kind of a bittersweet ending for a kid's book. Like, if I was reading it, I was like, huh? And I did give this a 3-star. I think it just dragged on a little, and it, like, in fairness, this was like 200 pages longer than the second book, and it just didn't do quite as well for me. I still overall really enjoyed it. I still really liked the characters. There was like a weird thing of like kind of like romancy, and I was like, was this necessary? But I mean, I'm not too mad about it. Also, there was this weird thing where like it kind of just gave me a bit of an icky feeling about, there's a character and she very much like, she was like abusive in the first book, and it was like nearly half trying to give her a redemption and being like, oh, but her maternal instincts are just so overwhelming, and it's like, but she cares so deeply, and it's like, but you acted that way in the first book. Like, what? And so that just kind of just gave me a bit of an ick, to be honest. And that was kind of my main complaint. Again, also just a little too long. It's like, it was a really good ending. Like, as I said, like, yeah, it dragged on a bit too much in like the middle and all that, but like the ending was so good, so well done. Then the 3rd book that I read was The Whispering Night by Susan Dennard. And I'm not going to talk about this too much because I'm going to be reading it in a vlog of my anticipated releases. I wasn't intending on including this, but then I was like, well, I suppose while it's here, I might as well. And so this is the 3rd and final book in the Luminaries trilogy. So this series follows Winnie Wednesday, and a couple of years prior to the start of the series, her family has basically been disowned and exiled almost by the Luminaries. So they still live in this small town, Hemlock Falls, but their families are no longer part of the Luminaries. They're not allowed to train or anything like that, and it's a very isolating time. She's basically lost all her friends, and her 16th birthday is coming up, and that's when the Luminary trials take place, and she has decided that there's a bit of a loophole that she technically can participate in them. So that's what she decides to do, and so she sets off to train and get ready for them, and there might be a werewolf attacking the town. And I really enjoy this. The first book for me was very much kind of like a bit of like a break kind of a read, you know, you need something just light and easy and fun. And I read it, had a good time with it, but I was just like, it's okay. The second book really surprised me because it got a lot deeper into the feelings. Like, obviously she went through a lot in general growing up, and also whole of the first book, like, it was pretty intense. And so I thought the way Susan Dennard like handled that was really well done, and I really enjoyed the conversations between about that and how like isolating the Luminaries can feel, and kind of how the power goes to their head a little and all of that. And I really was pleasantly surprised by the second book. And so the third book, I think, struggled a little between trying to balance that kind of like fun and humor of the first book and also the seriousness of the second book, and I just felt a little let down. I still gave it 4 stars and I still really enjoyed it. I enjoyed Winnie as a character. She's a very fun character, but I guess I just wanted a little more anger almost at the Luminaries, because they kind of suck. Like, they're kind of mean, and like it felt like we were getting a bit of that in the second one. But in the third book, like, again, we very much like the humor and all that, and like she is still dealing with like all of the trauma of everything that has happened over the past few months of her life. But like, I thought from like some lines of like the second book that it was not like a take down the Luminaries. I didn't think it was going to be that, but like you know, reform and change the Luminaries was going to be like the end goal, and like that didn't really happen. Like, definitely like things like got brought up and all of that, but it felt like she very much kind of just like bowed down to everything they wanted her to do, and it just didn't really fit with what I had expected from the story. Then I read 2 books that I was going to read for the Goodreads Choice Awards, and then I ended up not reading the Goodreads Choice Awards video. So the first one that I read was The Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, which didn't even make the top 10 anyway, so... But I did really enjoy it. I gave it a 4 stars. So this, I think it's supposed to be a Ghost Girl retelling, and I don't really know the story of the Ghost Girl, so I can't really tell how good of a retelling it is. Or I think it might kind of just be vaguely inspired by it. Also, if you can hear the rain against my window, I'm so sorry. We follow kind of 2 points of view. So we follow Cordelia, and she is a young teen, and her mother has the ability to control her, and this is obviously very disorientating, very scary, and it has made her a very scared young woman who tries her best to be obedient at all times. And her mother basically has lost her benefactor, and so she decides that she must get married so she can start kind of preparing Cordelia to get herself an even wealthier match. And so she sets her sight on this man, and then we follow the other point of view, who is this man's sister, and she immediately is like, I do not trust this woman. And so she and Cordelia begin to kind of form a friendship, and the 2 of them kind of maybe start talking about potentially some weird abilities her mother might have. Journey with T. Kingfisher has been a bit up and down. The books that I had read from her were all like were either like high 3, low 4s, so like nothing spectacular. It was like, they're okay, I like them. And at the start of this year, I just on a whim read Swordheart. I loved it. It's going to be one of my favorite books of the year, spoiler alert. And then I ended up reading all of her fantasy romances, which really worked for me. I really love her fantasy romances. I've only read one of her horrors. I'm slowly making my way through her backlist now, but I think this is my favorite book of hers that is like fantasy. On her like website, if you go onto it, she has them split up into horror, fantasy, romance, and fantasy. And in fairness, like a lot of them will steal little elements from the other. I mean, like the way that like the controlling, and there's like a scene with, if you're trigger warning for like killing animals in this book, so like that's pretty horrifying, but it is technically considered one of her fantasy novels. I think this was my favorite of what she considers like her straight up fantasy. I really enjoyed the dynamic of these two characters. I like reading from the point of view of a lot of her characters, and then like even like Cordelia was a bit younger, but like kind of just like exploring her mind and how her mother has kind of messed with it over the years. Just like the group dynamic, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed T. Kingfisher's writing, and as I said, there was definitely some like bit more horrifying things that happen in this book, but I overall really enjoyed it. So the final book that I read this month was Summer Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune. I'm not going to talk about this long that either, because quite frankly I did not like it. I give it a 2 out of 5 stars. I'm befuddled. So this is a sequel to, let me correct that. This is the unnecessary sequel to The House of the Cerulean Sea. I did read The House of the Cerulean Sea the year it came out. I enjoyed it, but I do not understand the purpose of this. Like, genuinely, I don't. Because there's no new messages. There is no new plot, because it is exactly the same plot, because we have some stranger coming to the orphanage who wants to take it down. But except instead of it being Linus, who's actually a good guy at heart, it's just a bad person who's very bad. I think it would have been better to either have this just be a sequel where, because we get in the introduction of a new child. So if you really want to write a sequel, just how bringing a new child changes the dynamic of the family, exploring all of that, and how this new child's magic and all of that, and how they all interact, and this change for these magical children, how does that affect them, all of that. Or because like this is kind of like nearly marketed as more of like Arthur's book, then make it a prequel, like, or you know, have it so that it's flashing back to his past while also like dealing with, as I said, that plot of like this new child coming to the orphanage. I don't understand why we needed the same plot. And as I said, I also do not understand the messaging of it. Like, I mean, I do understand the messaging of it, because, oh my god, you might as well just hit me with a flashing sign. People who have read, like, this is the second book in the series, so people who haven't read the first book aren't really supposed to be picking up the second one. But people who have read the first one, let's say they're meanie bad people, and they're like, no, I don't like people who are different, and I'm going to continue staying that way. They're not going to pick up the sequel and read this. And the people who have read the first book understood that messaging very clearly, because, I mean, that's the whole point of the first book. Is I could be misremembering the first book, but I remember it very being woven into the story, because like it's shown to us through Linus, the character. He has always been taught this one way. It's very strict. You follow the rules. The rules are the way they are because of a reason. And then he goes to this place, he sees these children, he opens his heart to them, and he learns that sometimes these rules do need to be changed and reformed. And so we're getting that through him, and we're like shown it through the story and through his mind and his narration. And in this book, we are not even shown it, we are told it every page. And it's like nearly, I don't want to say therapy fit speak, but like it feels very much like that. It's like, and how did that make you feel? How does that word affect you? I don't necessarily see a problem with books being obvious about a point, especially if they're YA, which this isn't. This is an adult book, so I think realistically we shouldn't be getting whacked with the messaging again and again and again. We should be able to be smart enough to figure out the messaging. But as I said, this is a sequel, so like I don't really understand why it's like that. So yes, so I just did not like it, which is a bit disappointing, but what can you do? So yes, so thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.